The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
No, get in. Welcome to the Phantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla.
Jared.
Rough start, guys.
Jared.
How was that rough? That sounded fucking amazing.
Yeah,
We killed it.
That's totally like the Hamilton and Peggy.
Yeah. So today we are doing... I mean, it's a deep dive, I think. It's the clown prince of crime, the Joker.
Boo.
You don't like the Joker, Kayla?
There are more interesting Batman villains that haven't been done 7,000 times.
It's really interesting how wrong Kayla is now. And often. I don't know. Maybe he's not interesting. I guess we'll have to figure it out. But I actually looked this up. And not a lot of podcasts actually do a Joker deep dive, but do you know why that is? That's the interesting thing.
Because they can't?
No, it's because some podcasts just like to watch the world burn. That's why. I looked it up.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It was not even 2 minutes before we already had a Dark Knight reference.
How do you not? Okay, we'll talk about it later, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the movie's coming out, so as always, we do a deep dive. This one's coming out, like, right before the movie premieres, so that's yay. So I guess you get a lot of Joker. I mean, yeah, and Kayla, she's in Scotland, and she doesn't know where a theater is, so she can't see the movie.
I'm not even convinced Sterling has a theater, if I'm honest. I'll try to Google it and try to find my way.
I love that Kayla loves this, or doesn't love the character, but doesn't want them to mess it up in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, this character, yawn, but if they fuck it up, I know where they live.
That's my opinion on all things Batman.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so I guess we will jump right into it. So I usually talk about the powers of the characters, and then, Kayla does the publication history, and Jared does the character bio or origin. And this is like our first villain, so it's a little odd, and especially with this one. So the Joker doesn't have powers, but I mean, we've done characters without powers before, but I mean, it's the Joker, so it's like he uses knives and crowbars and gas and henchmen and other villains.
He uses evil as his weapon. That's his power. Absolute chaos. Absolute evil.
Yeah, unpredictability and stuff like that. I mean, he's credited to be, have genius intellect. And I mean, I guess you have to be super smart to, hold audiences hostage and then poison them with
go toe-to-toe with Batman.
Or go to toe, yeah. And then, I mean, he has to make the chemicals too, and he invents his gadget, so he is somewhat smart.
Yeah, he has to be deeply intelligent because, there's this idea like, oh, he's insane, and that's why Batman can't predict his actions. It's like, there's a couple things. One, insane people generally are relatively predictable, at least so far that you can do therapy on them in the first place. Like, it's not just randomness, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, if it was just insanity, any criminally insane person would be a match for Batman. Clearly, that's not the case. There are plenty of, paranoid schizophrenic people who cannot fight the Dark Knight. So there's something special here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just his power set is just the typical arch enemy of a hero. Deception, expert hand-to-hand combat. He's super smart. He makes gadgets. He has an arsenal of comedy-themed gadgets, like teeth and balloons and confetti, I think, is one of them. I don't know.
The man knows how to commit
clown
to the
stuff.
bit.
Yeah, the typical motif of the Joker. I mean, I think one of his like signature things is, the acid flower on his lapel and, the Joker teeth or the chattering teeth. And then sometimes toys, I think, but I think Toyman kind of stole his thunder. And then, he has his henchmen and then his sidekick Harley Quinn, he uses as a weapon as well. But I think he's really good at using the hero's or Batman's morality and the ways that he is against him, holding people hostage or, killing his family members because he's done that quite a few times, or cutting off his own face to scare the shit out of everybody.
Yep. Yeah, it just happens.
And he's got the Joker venom, which is like pretty vague, but that's at least like a weapon we get to see him use pretty consistently.
Is it called venom?
Unfortunately.
Yep, it's called Joker venom. Even though you're right, it's a poison generally, but like it's usually sort of filed under venom for some reason. Yeah, and it usually, like if you're an uninitiated Batman fan, usually the idea is that like it poisons you, nearly kills you, but it makes you laugh or have a big smile. And that's either usually incidental to the poison or like you laugh so hard you break your back kind of stuff.
I mean, that's kind of sweet. He makes you die while laughing and big old smile.
Shut up,
on your
Noah.
face.
Irony.
Stop with your dark character apologist attitude right now.
Sorry, not sorry. So, I mean, that's really it for his powers and his typical like methods of killing, hostage taking, and or deceiving.
He's got all these murderous weapons and he's evil and stuff like that, which makes him only slightly more terrifying than any other clown.
Just slightly.
All right. So that's mine, obviously. And the Joker has been around for a very long time. So bear with me. Luckily, when I was doing research, it was easily kind of broken up into like the ages of comics, gold, silver, bronze, that type of stuff. So that made it a little bit easier. But from the top, Joker debuted in Batman #1 in 1940. So, go figure. First main villain. Do keep in mind, Batman had been in Detective Comics for about a year, though. So, just about a year after Batman was introduced as a character in Batman #1, Joker got in. And he started out as like, it surprised me because he started out as the remorseless serial killer, not like the happy clown that pulls pranks, but he started off really, really dark. Like killed victims, obviously, like you had mentioned, using the Joker venom. So he had that from the very beginning too. And fun fact, he was actually supposed to be killed in his second appearance in Batman #1 after being stabbed in the heart. But the editor at the time, kind of overruled that decision, was like, I like the Joker. So the Joker ended up appearing in 9 out of the first 12 Batman issues. And then since then, of course, has appeared a lot in Batman stories.
I didn't know he appeared that much within the first couple comics.
I didn't either.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, it was pretty interesting that, well, one, that he was supposed to die. I can't imagine the world, like one of the world's most popular pop icon just images outside of comics in general, being dead in the 40s. But yeah, no, they're pretty intrinsically tied since the very beginning. Obviously, since then he's appeared in the 40s as like the archenemy of the dynamic duo. And then fun story, though. In 1940, the Joker Walks the Last Mile story. You kind of see a more goofy transformation into him. And Grant Morrison says that was the start and probably the inspiration for like the comic Joker for the next 30 years.
Jeez.
And I know, right? It was a lot. Jumping into the Silver Age, he's one of the few popular villains to actually survive the Golden Age and carry on into the Silver Age. Like when you do Batman research on villains and stuff, you're like, I've never heard of any of these guys. It's probably because they were one-shots in the Golden Age of comics and were never brought up again.
Yeah, there was the great Golden Age villain extinction.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of pre-Cambrian.
Joker was one of the few to survive the extinction.
The megalodon of the...
I know, he's the Nessie. But in the Silver Age was when the first origin story for the Joker was introduced in Detective Comics 168. And that's when he was introduced as the criminal Red Hood. He disfigured by falling into a chemical vat. You know, we all know that story. And then by 1954, that's when the Comics Code Authority kind of stepped in and was like, whoa, this Joker character is way too dark. So he kind of became a lot more goofy, kind of more into thieving than outright serial killing. So he kind of lost his homicidal tendencies for a while.
Kind of like the animated series in a way, like Joker. Because, I mean, he was evil in a way, but he was definitely more campy, I guess, or more...
Yeah, exactly. They were kind of like really leaning into like the whole clown thing as opposed to like the terrifying serial killer that makes you die laughing.
Honestly, we're lucky we didn't get like a sidekick to like soften him, like some like Jester the Kid or something.
That would have been an awesome character. He started appearing less frequently after that, imagine. So like through the 50s and the 60s, he kind of just became a goof, appeared less and less in comics. And then at 1947, entering the Bronze Age, he hadn't appeared for the last 4 years. He was revived by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. And the Joker's 5-Way Revenge. And that's when he kind of returns to his impulsive, like, homicidal, crazy clown roots.
Yay!
I know, right? Back to the Joker we all hate and hate. He was also the first villain to feature in a title series. It was the Joker in 1975. So Joker broke a lot of records that way as well. And then in the modern age of comics, because here we are, after the television show, comics, like Batman was almost canceled. I know everyone knows that story. But people kind of consider the Joker's appearance and relationship with Batman one of the reasons he wasn't canceled. Especially when then in the 1970s, like 4 years after the show was canceled, he returned to those darker roots. And then obviously in 1988, The Killing Joke. And then you started killing Robins. Harley Quinn came into the 90s. And then, I mean, into the 2000s, 2011s, he's just gotten kind of darker and darker, which is basically the circle of his publication history. Started out dark, got some goofiness in the middle there, almost disappeared with Batman in general, and then came back to his darker roots.
I mean, I guess when they push him too far or make him murder too many babies, they kind of have to be like, ooh, let's go back. And then they just make him cut off his face, and then he disappears, and then he comes back, and yeah.
I know that we're going to talk about his like worst crimes later. I can't wait to get to that part because they're pretty awful.
They're so bad.
But yeah, that's his kind of very extensive, quickly summarized publication history.
Heck yeah, been around since the beginning, as arch enemies usually do.
But yeah, so there are these like competing aspects. So it does make sense that certain writers are going to emphasize like the fun aspect, which you really get in the animated series, or the, you know, like the more horrifying, terrifying aspect, you know, again, like a clown is. But yeah, so what's interesting is usually I do the sort of origin or kind of brief early history. But the thing about the Joker, and most of, you know, even casual fans will know, he doesn't have one actual origin. He's got several competing ones. And when I went back and did some research, I kind of thought I was going to find 3 or 4 different ones, but that's not even the case. There are sort of like these 14 literally different origins. So I can't go into all of them, but what I am going to do is sort of point to 3 elements that are repeating or often feature in the Joker's origin. So one is the Red Hood. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about that is that some of you, especially the more recent fans, that name should be relatively familiar, Red Hood, right? Which is sort of Jason Todd's sort of most recent and current sort of like superhero sort of persona or whatever.
Well, anti-hero. How dare you?
By all means, I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. So, well, he's a hero to me. God damn it. Anyway, so, but yeah. So the Red Hood was originally a Batman villain, sort of early sort of Batman villain, sort of one-off kind of character, and then later on when they're still relatively early when they're trying to explain Joker's origin, the idea was that this character, the Red Hood, and if you ever get to see him, he's got kind of a bucket head and a
How
cape.
can you even see through that thing, honestly?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that he, in a fight with Batman, this is the sort of original origin, falls into a vat of chemicals and then becomes the Joker. So that's sort of the sort of beginning kind of concept. Later on, there's also this notion that the Joker was at some point a failed comedian who is disgraced and becomes the Joker after kind of losing sanity and his life falls apart. In The Killing Joke, which is something we'll probably touch on several times, Alan Moore writes those two, he kind of brings them together for the most famous origin, which is this sort of failed comedian whose life falls apart, who's fallen in with the mob, and ends up being like one of their patsies. He has to dress up like this Red Hood character. That way the cops or Batman will think he's the leader because he's in the flamboyant costume. He's in fact going to be the patsy. And then when Batman tries to stop him, he clumsily falls into a pit of sort of industrial waste or something like that, and becomes obviously the Joker or whatever. Exactly. You've seen him, 100 times. He's got the red hair, the white skin, the red lips, everything like that. So those two elements, and then the third major element to most of his history is the bored gangster. So it's sort of a gangster who has power in Gotham, becomes relatively complacent and bored, and then becomes obsessed with Batman. Usually that's the idea. If not obsessed with Batman, just bored generally, and then uses this sort of more eccentric and flamboyant Joker sort of like motif to get the Dark Knight's attention. And those sort of most of the Joker's origins at different times have been kind of pieces of those. Usually that character is called Jack or Jack Napier or something like that. And that
it's just Jack Napier.
Yeah, but actually there have been looking this up. There have been a couple of things where he's only referred to as Jack, and it's
terrifying.
And what's crazy is that we don't have an official story in DC. We just have these sort of competing sort of, origins or something like that. But unlike most characters, and I actually always think of the Scarlet Witch, where that's actually been kind of to the detriment of her character, because she's not supposed to have these different origins there, but all these different retcons have kind of created a kind of confusion and a vagary. In the opposite way, the Joker's got this almost intentional ambiguity. I think DC has created this almost mythos around him that he's not supposed to have an origin, and who knows? And there have been several times where he's doubled down on that fact, saying that he can't really remember which origin is correct. I know Kayla kind of believes the Joker's not really supposed to have a definitive origin. That's pretty true to your position, right?
That is correct. I know it kind of goes into the next section we're going to be talking about, but I just feel in terms of symbolism and what he's supposed to represent or bring out in Batman, that it works better if he doesn't have this whole I was a down and out comedian and then I turned to crime origin story where he just sprung out of the darkness. You don't know where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that in a weird way, I just appreciate that DC, in some sort of editorial sense, kind of used took what would otherwise be a weakness and kind of turned it into a strength for the character. A few more things worth mentioning about his origin. There have been a few other notable cases. There's been one occurrence where they wrote a story. I wish I could remember the writer, but the idea was that Joker actually was sane all along and feigned insanity. Just generally to be more mysterious and to be more powerful in his people didn't trust him, and he was more fear inspiring.
It was all just an act, essentially.
Yeah, and then something to and then I like this, though. I actually think it kind of is just a different character in Tyler. You can have an origin that kind of breaks the mold in some sense. But the idea was that Joker was this almost like quasi-archetypical Vandal Savage character who literally discovered the Lazarus Pits before Ra's and has been around in this kind of like weird fashion for hundreds, if not more, years. And so he's a kind of like, there's this telling where he's a kind of ancient evil or something like that.
Yeah, there's stories that point to him being like the devil and like the actual embodiment of the devil, which I'm like, oh, okay, let's not go that far.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you have to create these stories that go too far so you can further, like, almost accurately delimit what really makes the character cool. But the last thing I'll say on this, and we're in an interesting place in contemporary continuity, because in the Darkseid War, Batman gets a hold of the Mobius chair. Which, if you don't know, is Metron, the New God's chair that kind of gives you the ability, the sort of galactic or universal omniscience. You just know everything that's going on in the multiverse. And Batman finds out that there are 3 Jokers. Mm-hmm. So our current continuity, we don't know much because they haven't released the comic book called something like 3 Jokers. It's supposed to hit the sands, and they've been working on this literally for like 2 years. But all we know is that there are, for whatever reason, 3 different separate people who are in some ways intimately connected who are the Joker. So we're going to find out, like, I don't know if this is going to, yeah, exactly. I mean, but they have been super vague about it and confusing, because the idea is that it's not 3 people. It's in somehow they're the same person, but 3 different ones at the same time. So we don't know if there's
it's going to be the Flash's fault. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Or a time travel thing.
Noah.
Yeah, I mean, what a freaking cliffhanger. Because I remember seeing that and being like, what are you talking about? And then I forgot about it until we started doing research for this. I'm like, oh yeah, there's supposed to be 3.
And what's even weirder is it's coming out on I think it's called their Black Label. Yes. DC has this thing where they do this sort of quasi or meta continuity, where it's sort of like a standalone story, but it will actually exist in some way in the DCU. And I think the way that they just manage that is that, like, okay, that's not a story that's in the linear, like, timeline that's going on right now. So it won't be in like Batman Volume 11, but it's still somehow involved in the continuity.
Well, it's just like the Harley Quinn one that just came out, Harleen. It's just telling her origin. So it's technically part of the character, but not what's currently happening. So it's comics. They always do that.
Yeah, and just, I mean, it's interesting because it's like people worry about, I think even Kayla's like, oh, there shouldn't be a definitive origin. But what's funny is that they've cast it so much into doubt, it doesn't matter what they decide his origin is. It can't just be that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's always going to be like, well, this is the latest one, I mean,
what's
every
the
story
next
they
one
ever
going to
did.
be?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Every story they ever did, they said, this is going to be the origin. It would enunciated itself as if it was the one, and then it just turned out to be one of many. So that's sort of what the Joker is like in terms of where he comes from.
Mm-hmm. So confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 Jokers.
Be confused. That's the point.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got to get into his relationship with Batman.
Yes.
Because there would be no Joker without Batman and no Batman without Joker, because they're madly in love with each other and they just need to get married already and stop this song and dance. Because,
no.
Hey,
there's no
would you
way
rather have... Would you rather have him with Catwoman?
Will accept the Joker as another stepdad. There's no way that's going to happen. So,
I mean, if you should read The White Knight. You kind of, you might.
Oh, you think
like him.
Think Babs would be cool with that? You think Babs would be cool with that, Noah?
I mean, that implies there would be somebody that would be cool with it, and I don't think
me.
That is true. Well, I'm just thinking he won't even make it through the door. Jason would just shoot him in the face.
Probably.
Well, and I did want to say, like, if you've been following the podcast, you've heard us do deep dives. We've done about 6 or 7, something like that. This is our first villain deep dive, and it's interesting because we have to organize it a bit different because with a major character who's a superhero, the idea is they have a kind of history and they have supporting cast and everything like that, and that they are the kind of like center, that their little comic book world, they're the nucleus of it, right? Well, with the Joker is in some sense a kind of supporting character, however antagonistic, to a major hero, which is Batman. So in a lot of ways, the Joker functions almost exclusively to bring something out of Batman or to be a story or something like that. And yeah, so it's sort of how I think should begin.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the Joker, I mean, how he works with Batman, kind of like what I said earlier, he knows exactly how far to push him, and he's always trying to push him further. I mean, even if you've seen, any of the Dark Knight stuff or the movie, the comics, I mean, he's always trying to, get him to kill, get him to laugh, get him to kill him, seeing how far he'll go. And he'll do that with everybody that's close to Batman. So if that's even with, his Robins or, with Batgirl and stuff like that, I think he's the one villain and he's the one character that knows exactly how to get at Batman's core and to completely destroy him. I mean, he even made Batman laugh.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about why the Joker's Batman's like arch nemesis, we know obviously he's been there since the beginning, but he's also kind of the only villain that's just solely obsessed with Batman's character. Like all the other ones have their own agendas. They kind of are struggling to survive in very villainy ways. But Joker is kind of the only one that, I mean, like, he really doesn't have serious agendas outside of just screwing with Batman.
That is a brilliant point. And I think what's cool about that is that, like, the fact is that Joker is the one that's the most sort of like concerned with or has a problem with Batman in a conceptual sense, right? All of the other ones sort of don't like him personally or compete
You're in my
with
way,
him.
Batman.
Exactly.
Yeah, or they compete with. So a lot of them are vendetta driven. They've sort of. Batman has stopped them or ruined their lives, or Bruce
they've been
Wayne
employed by Wayne Industries.
Absolutely.
Or Enterprises.
So they have a personal history, or they have some sort of competitive thing. So, they're criminals and he's an adversary because he's a crime fighter. Or you have the Riddler thing where, he's like, he wants to be smarter than Batman. Joker's the only one that, like, in some sense is against Batman because he's Batman. You know what I mean? Like his Batman-ness. And I do want to say this, and I think it's worth asking why it is, but Batman has the best rogues gallery in comics, with maybe some exceptions, but that's not a controversial thing.
No, and I think if you think about him, I mean, as far as, me personally, I think my even just top 3 would have to be, Batman, Flash, and Spider-Man. Because I just think all of their villains are so iconic, they're so integral to the character, and they have, I think the relationships between them are the most interesting thing.
But absolutely. And so what does it say that with the greatest rogues gallery, Joker is almost unequivocally at the top of it? Now, I mean, I sort of agree with Kayla. He's not my personal favorite. Mm-hmm. But if in an objective sense I had to say who's the greatest Bat villain, probably going to have to say Joker. Oh, well, yeah, besides Kite Man. We were all going to, you got Kite Man, Calendar Man, Ambush Bug, who's a Marvel villain, and then also,
Don't do my Riddler dirty like that.
Yeah, I just think, one of the things that makes him that way is he's been the one to really tear him down, and he's been the one to kill the most Robins, or at least fake their death. So, like, I think he has, like, some stake as far as being like, no, I'm the best one, and he takes pride in being Batman's favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I find it actually weird that it's so. I mean, I don't want to linger too long here, but like how easy it is to label him as the best one, because you take other comic book characters, and I actually don't think it's usually that clear. So even, I mean, honestly, even with Superman, I mean, the easy association is Lex, but I actually would argue characters like Brainiac and Darkseid and Zod. I mean, maybe they're not hands down above Lex Luthor in terms of like them being the main arch nemesis, but they do bring things to the table and they eclipse Lex in some really specific ways. Like I said, most characters, I mean, Thor, you have Loki, but you have a lot of other characters. There's reasons that Loki in certain ways isn't the most villainous of the villains. It should be impressive that it's just, it's the Joker, no question.
I don't know if that's partly because we just have so much Joker content.
We do too much Joker content.
Yeah, no, but I think that it's kind of been shoved into our brains that is the best Batman villain, and even if he is, and some people might not think it's their favorite or whatever. I mean, we got movies, we got long running TV shows, and he has his own comic and all that stuff. So his association with Batman, you can't. I don't know. It's weird. I can't think about Batman without the Joker. It's just, it always goes hand in hand. And I think it's funny that they wrote their relationship that way. I mean, how many times has the Joker said, like, you need me. You can't be you without me. And that's why he won't kill him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Batman doesn't kill anybody.
Well, I mean, he did
the Joker's not that special.
Joker snapped his own neck.
I mean, he made him, though, so whatever.
I mean, that's a great moment, by the way, but just it's so terrifying anyway. But so I think we can also just mention, I mean, because comic books are such a visual medium, they look so good together. They contrast so wonderful together just on the splash page.
Yeah, who would have thought that a zoot suit wearing clown and a man dressed as a bat would look great together?
Oh my god!
Well, absolutely. But I mean, you have this dark silhouette sort of character, this void-like thing that's barely a shape, and then that's also very like translatable in a sense. Like Batman is sort of scary, and like you take it seriously even if you're not a superhero person, and then this ridiculously flamboyant, brightly colored kind of thing next to him. You have a very serious image. And then you have a very, like, ridiculously, I don't know, what's the word, like, just this grinning, leering thing. I mean, they're just such wonderfully visual opposites.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, my favorite. Do you guys have a favorite look for the Joker? Like, I personally, I liked the new 52 Joker as, Joe, where he had the mechanic outfit on and the, cut off face strapped to his head. I thought it was terrifying.
No thanks. I don't like staring at that. No.
I have a favorite, which is so one of the reasons like I don't dislike the Killing Joke, but I think the thing missing from the Killing Joke sort of story is the gangster Joker.
Yeah, no, I agree with you actually, Jared. That's a good look with the hat.
Yeah, I mentioned the zoot suit is in reference in some sense to that kind of like gangstery, like, Depression era criminal. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, he's the clown prince of crime. And in a lot of ways, that's it's a parody of that kind of criminality. And a lot of his like weapons and motifs are kind of like gangster-ish kind of stuff, like the big revolver and he always has knives. And again, he's in that ridiculous, like, slicked back hair. So I usually like the ones that at least stay in that template. I don't think he has to just be a gangster with clown paint on. I'm fine that it departs that, but I always want to see when he moves away, like Jim Lee did him, where he looked just more vaudevillian, like more of like a circusy kind of clown, which I'm not against, but again, I always like to see a little bit of my like gangster accents and motif there.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%. Best look. Suspenders, coattails, hat, the whole shebang.
Well, and to bridge us into the character stuff, I think it's also interesting, like that he and Batman are this weird yin and yang in terms of what their appearance is like, contrasted by what they're actually like. So Batman appears scary. And, he's terrifying and serious, and he's a good, noble person trying to do what's right underneath. He won't kill you, generally, or at least not most people. And the Joker is this happy-looking thing who looks like he would be, if not kind, at least not dangerous. But ironically, he's this deep, dark, murderous, chaotic thing. And so I just like that you have those two visual ironies contrasted against one another. It's a wonderful pairing, I think.
Yeah. So should we move into greatest crimes, or at least the crimes that you guys like?
One last thing, because I did put
Jared.
too much thought into this. I know. Well, it just needs to be mentioned, which is that if Joker is this agent of chaos, then he's a great foil to Batman's like hyper orderliness. And that's, I think, also what maintains him as this sort of like consistent presence. You need to throw some fucking chaos. You need a clown chaos grenade to throw into Batman's perfect Gotham lockdown.
I mean, Gotham's never going to be perfect, so good luck, Batman.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's really hard to think of. I don't know. The Joker has done so many terrible things.
Is it really that hard? Because I think two of them stand out the most. Can you guess what the two are?
Yeah, I mean, I have. There's only two that really come to my mind when I'm like, I don't like that the Joker did this. I don't like a lot of things that he's done, but I just think about those whenever I think about the Joker. So I guess I'll do one, and then you guys can go or whatever. So
I've got the third, I think. So yeah, we'll see. I don't think we're going to copy. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess we'll see. So one that stands out to me is the Injustice storyline. I know it's not canon, but I think this is such an interesting, but it's an interesting thing that the Joker did, because it not only shows his, intellect and genius, but also that he can really fuck over Batman without actually doing anything to Batman.
I don't even think you've broken into the top 10 with that one, but that is a really good story.
I mean, you mean tricking Superman to believe that his pregnant wife is Doomsday, and he flies Lois to outer space and suffocates her, and then when Superman finds out what he did, he goes and smashes through Joker's chest. That's not in the top 10. Come on.
Well, when you phrase it that way, it sounds bad.
Well, also technically didn't happen because Injustice is a garbage universe.
Well, then stuff in the New 52 didn't technically happen. It's comics, Kayla. I don't know what to
That's
tell
part
you.
of the main continuity. Fight me, boy.
But
it's all mostly fictional. I don't know if you guys know that.
No, it's
we
not.
don't have like the window into a certain reality or when we read comics, as much as I wish it was the case.
Hey, I have another one, so once you guys go, I might redeem myself, Kayla.
All right.
Let me go next, because I feel like I'm going to have the next most obscure one.
Okay.
And because we got some major legendary crimes coming up that we have like marked the DC universe, but one that, and that's actually my first experience with like, oh my god, this clown's fucking awful. Was, if you guys remember the No Man's Land story, even if you didn't read it, you might be familiar. This is
was mine.
That was yours. Yeah. Okay, well, you do it. Go ahead, because I got more. So you do that one.
No, okay, fine. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. So it's the one with the babies, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So there's all the stories unfolding and everything, and the Joker gets Sarah Gordon, Jim Gordon's wife, and he throws a baby at her. And so the choices are, she can either save the baby or sacrifice herself. And Sarah Gordon, being who she is, she goes for the baby. She catches the baby as, it's falling, and ends up getting shot. But the image that is just so insane, because at this time, the Joker's just kidnapping babies, like all over the place. Like, I mean, obviously Gotham and No Man's Land has gone to complete shit, even more shit than it could have been. And it just
Real quick, explain No Man's Land, just so people who haven't read Batman
Go back and listen to our Women of the Bat episode. I'm not prepared to go over the whole synopsis of it.
But the basic concept is Gotham has been abandoned by the United States, and it becomes a land. The whole city is just ruled by rival gangs that are all generally led by Batman's rogues gallery. So Penguin's got a gang, Two-Face's got a gang, and in this case, Joker's got a gang, and they're trying to find him. They're chasing him down, and what Noah's describing happens, and it's absolutely awful.
Yeah, you see her, bleeding out with abandoned infants around her. It's one of the most unsettling things, and I didn't expect it to happen. I don't know. It's fuck the Joker.
It's brilliantly, yeah, fuck him indeed, and it's a brilliantly communicated set of panels, because I agree, you don't see that coming. It's very quick. She's probably as not the most important character, not going to be the one to bring Joker in, but she chases him down, and he has a baby in his hand. He throws it at her, and you're as what the fuck is going on? She catches the thing, and he shoots her in the face. She has to drop her gun to catch the baby.
He catches the thing. You mean the child?
The thing. No, I meant Miss Thing. It's a good point. It's babies are people. That's a good point.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that story's real fucked up. But we got Cassandra Cain out of it, so that's cool. Or at least Batgirl, her Batgirl.
Poor death of Jason Todd.
Yes,
I think really
we have to go
Joker
there
for that one when it was the stupid audience that called in to kill him.
Sorry,
but there's nothing quite as gruesome as the Joker beating to death a teenage boy with a crowbar. So that was pretty awful.
Then blowing him up,
exploding the building. So he died by crowbar explosion. And even though we get the red hood,
that's where the genius intellect comes in.
Even though we get Jason Todd as, he comes back as one of the coolest characters ever, it's still pretty terrible. What a terrible thing the Joker had done.
It's completely brutal. It's a kid. First of all, it's Robin, but it's a kid. And he beats him nearly to death with the crowbar. And it's, I don't know. It's maybe also I guess we'll get to this afterwards, but it really hits Batman where he lives.
Yeah.
Well, it's
so personal.
Adopted son.
Yeah. And then I'll mention the one we've talked about this before on the thing, but it can't go unmentioned in his greatest crimes. He shot Barbara Gordon in the spine.
Yeah.
And it was in The Killing Joke, and honestly, it really informs Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight, maybe more than anything else.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't just he's going to do something awful. If you remember, and I don't even think Joker knew she was Batwoman. She knew he was Jim Gordon's daughter. Batgirl. So he Batgirl, exactly. So he walks up to her residence, knocks on the door. She opens, Barbara Gordon opens the door, and he shoots her point blank in the stomach, severing her spine, putting her in a wheelchair. And then he takes all these pictures of her.
I was going to say, I think the pictures are, suddenly just somehow worse to me. It just creeps me the fuck out. When he taunts
you're absolutely right.
Gordon with the photos that he took of Barbara, it just really felt very invasive. Ugh.
Absolutely. And though there's not an explicit sexual component to it, there's definitely a violation and perversion that
he sexually assaulted her. Regardless, it was harassment. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
That was the intention of why he took those pictures. One, for a writer to think of that, and then two, for this character to not only shoot her and paralyze her, but also then to up the ante and then do that and then develop those pictures and then set up this big elaborate show for the father of that character. It's just...
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And that I think again goes back to the Dark Knight, which is a very similar principle, because Joker's entire point is that if you put somebody in the certain circumstances, that you can basically take even a virtuous person and ruin their life, and they'll become an awful.
Yeah, I mean,
monster,
it's the whole it
he
only
was.
takes one bad day philosophy.
Yes. Yeah, and Gordon proves him wrong, and I think it's a huge moment. In larger mythos about, I mean, it's not as if Joker admits to the error of his ways in that moment. Like, oh, I guess you were right. I shouldn't have done that. But it definitely, I mean, it's a great moment too, because I think, that you get so muddy in that story and in those comics generally about like, oh, maybe there's some in between where we see, well, no, that good can prevail, at least according to this mythos, and that, good people can be good despite awful, horrible circumstances.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the awful, horrible things don't keep happening to him. Especially Jim. Poor Jim.
Yeah, I know. Poor Jim. I mean, if we're going to move on to like other horrible, invasive things that the Joker does to women, I know it doesn't really count as like a one-off crime, but like Harley Quinn is his fault. He like emotionally manipulated this woman and twisted her. And
before we get to Harley, and that's a big section for us, because how do you not? I do want to mention real quick, the listener, no, everybody can hear you sighing. Thank you. Anyway, for the listener, I was going to say, we didn't mention a bunch of crimes, so please, on our social media, please send us pics of your favorite Joker. That's the worst thing he ever did. And I want to mention, I just think it's a great form of interactivity.
So you want our social media to be littered with terrible Joker crimes. Okay.
I wanted to know what your favorite bad Joker moments are. And then
I was going to say, I'm already cringing and having nightmares, so thanks.
Yeah, it's Halloween's coming up. And then the other thing I want to say that I think is crazy is that, like, Joker, of all the villains, has gotten the most personal with Batman, but ironically is the least personal about it. Like, he has fucked up Bruce's life more than anybody, hurt him, cut him deeper emotionally than anybody else. And he doesn't even really give a fuck about Bruce Wayne.
No. Well, he cares about Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Good point, Jared.
Thank you. That's what I'm here to make. Good points that take a long time to make. Okay.
All right, Harley. We need to get into Harley because we can't talk about the Joker without talking about his one true not love.
Exactly. Thank you for finishing it that way.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I was going to punch you through the phone if you ended it any other way. I know. So I feel like there's this really unhealthy obsession with their relationship and I can't speak right now. Basically, they romanticize the relationship that Joker and Harley have, and not to make a Phantom of the Opera comparison, but it reminds me of middle schoolers going like, oh man, that Phantom was so sweet to Christine. Why didn't she end up with Phantom? Why did she end up with the savior rich guy that was like Prince Charming? And I just feel like it's a very childish and scary mentality that people romanticize that relationship so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have people that, I mean, I've argued with people too, like, especially when Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy are an item now, or married or whatever, and people were like, well, I like her better with the Joker. I was like, why? That wasn't a relationship. She was a hostage. I mean, like, she was in an abusive, manipulative relationship, and I think it's so weird that people forget.
It's like badass. It's like really cool.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you like that they're both like clown motifs. That's cool, I guess. That's like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I have a lot of annoying things I'm going to need to say. So
when you put it that way.
Well, look, I think so. First of all, they're villains, and I think that's important to make that point. And Harley has become and protagonistic, so to speak, lately, and so people I think want the best for her and everything like that. But it's important to remember. I mean, it's a horror story at some level. And it's like, I think people liking that relationship, I think they're interested in it in the sense that it's this dark, awful thing. Sort of like, I don't like that Frankenstein brought back this awful thing from the dead, mashed together with corpses, and then it killed him or something like that. I don't like that he did that, but it's inherently an interesting sort of character study. And I think, I won't deny that Kayla's right, that there are people that champion this in a fucked up way. But I think there's also something that people are interested in it because it is this really demented, codependent relationship that you get to see in comic books, which, has its place as long as, we understand this is a bad thing.
Yeah, well, I would just argue that it happened in comics. It's there. You can go back and read those stories if you want to. She's still trying to escape a lot of the time from his hold on her, but it's something that happened. Like, it doesn't have to be a constant state for that character. And if people really like that story, it hasn't gone anywhere. Like, you can still read the creepy, twisted things, the horror story, if you will, that happened. I mean, without having to be like, why can't Harley stay there forever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's good. There's currently two origins happening, or at least if you want to really know, like, there's the more modern one that's just happening now. It's Harleen. So it's under the Black label. And then there's also the Batman Adventures Mad Love. And that was really the one that really showed her, her origin when she was, taking care of the Joker in Arkham Asylum, and when she was the Doctor, and how he manipulated her. I mean, you'll see the Joker at his nicest when he's turning Harleen into Harley, because he knows exactly what he's doing. He's purposely manipulating her, this impressionable, new Doctor at Arkham Asylum in Gotham City of all places. And she falls for it. Her personality snaps, her mental state, which is funny because, I mean, she's there helping him in his mental state, and then he reverses it. And I think that really shows kind of the game the Joker is playing.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so I agree with you, Kayla. I do. I want her to get over him, but I almost feel like to the degree, if she stays a villain, I think she needs to not get over him. Only not because it's like she deserves it or villains deserve to be bad, but there's a certain way that they stay villains because they remain in their tragedy. It's like, I want Mr. Freeze to get over his dead wife, but the moment he does, he's probably not Mr. Freeze anymore.
I would argue though with Harley, she can still be in that tragedy because of the mistakes and everything she made being with the Joker, but she could still be a villain, which she has. I mean, she's kind of teetering on the anti-hero thing, and then Suicide Squad has kind of, put her on that pedestal, but I mean, she could still be in that without being with the Joker. So,
I mean, her relationship with Poison Ivy, and even though the relationship is healthier, Poison Ivy is still a villain, so...
Exactly.
That's true. I think she's in a lot closer to that, like, Flash, Rogue's, like, kind of like crook place than she is in, like, working for an evil, demented sort of serial killer character. So that's progress, I'd say.
Definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Do you think she back to Joker, do you think she softens him when they were together?
No.
Or do you think it's almost like she brings out this other dimension of like how fucking awful he is?
I think that's it.
I mean, there's that one of the infamous scenes from the animated series is, when she's trying to be sweet and, kind of romantic with him, and he like beats the crap out of her for even just trying to actually be in a relationship with him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think she makes him softer. I think, she kind of just annoys him and he just uses her when he can.
Yeah, it's like, hey, did you remember this creepy clown that killed people? How about instead we see him abuse people? Isn't that a new facet of awfulness? I think that's what he does.
It's great.
No, I know. He definitely used her. In the animated series, it was often like, Harley, I'm going to need you to be shot out of a cannon into Wayne Manor, or whatever. Like, big helper.
Yeah. I think, wasn't it in, I can't remember if it's in Mad Love or the animated series or both, because I know it was in both. But when she was going to kill Batman with piranhas to kind of, as a gift in a way, and he beats the crap out of her for doing that, or for like capturing his arch enemy and about to kill him. He like beats the crap out of her and throws her out the window. So it's like, wait, so that's not what you wanted? Like,
He's about deeply insecure.
Yeah, talk about not good communication in a relationship. Oh, man.
So, well, speaking of the animated series, I think now we can get to the part where we talk about our favorite adaptation outside of the comics of the Joker. And I just have to put it on the table that, for me, Mark Hamill's Joker from the animated series is really the top for me. Now, I don't think it's a definite, but I'd have no difficulty saying that.
Yeah.
Well, what about Mark Hamill's adaptation in the Arkham video games?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to put them all the same thing. No, but you're absolutely right. He's fantastic in every Joker performance.
Well, I like the games because he got to say words and act more evil because it was for a more mature audience.
Sure.
So you really got to see, I guess, more of the comic book bad side of Joker than you did in the animated series, even though they had some very mature themes, like everything I just said about Harley happened in the animated series. But
yeah, I actually think he's pretty dark in the animated series. But they have to kind of like, he can't say awful things or cut his own face off. But he is every bit as vicious in terms of like the intents he describes and like his plans and stuff. So he's also really funny. And he's something people don't think about, which makes him possibly more evil than any other Joker. He's fucking British. Have you noticed that? It's a weird British accent, and nobody ever mentions it. But, Joker here. Like, I'm sorry, but he's, like, affecting some, like, weirdly British, or worse yet, like, New England Grey Gardens kind of accent, which is just,
I mean, I would think
horrifying.
I don't think I ever thought about it that way.
I know, but that is definitely not an American like thing. Anyway, I was just like stuck out to me when I was listening to it today. I was like, wait a fucking second. He's not pronouncing his R's.
Did you sit there and just like listen to a bunch of like Joker sound bites?
Oh, I mean, not for this.
Dangerous.
I just do that. That's just my morning ritual generally, Yeah, just to kind of get into it,
Why are you the way that you are? That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Mark Hamill's Joker is obviously almost everybody's favorite. He's coveted as being the best Joker. And then Heath Ledger is very close behind, I think, with a lot of people. The 1960s, TV show. He's so campy. I mean, he's fun. He's funny.
Cesar Romero is is captivating.
Yeah, but he didn't. I like how he couldn't be bothered to shave his mustache, so it's just white paint, and then with white paint over the mustache. So you can definitely see that mustache.
It's because he's a Joker. Yeah. He's joking, Noah.
Yeah, and then Jared Leto. Okay, so. I always get shit for liking Jared Leto's Joker, and the only reason I like Jared Leto's Joker is if he was to be made into the Joker, and if he was the Joker now in modern times, that's how I would see the Joker look and act. Like, he would have all the tattoos, he would have the grill, he would act, he would be a kingpin of, all these strip joints and stuff like that. That's just more of the modern interpretation of kind of a crime lord or a gangster. So
the only thing I
agree.
Salvageable is the whole like he's a mob boss, because I really do like that about the Joker and about the Arkham games, which I will always talk up. Is that like he actually has henchmen show them off, like he is a mob boss. He has people to do his bidding, and I think Jared Leto's Joker definitely gave that impression. So if anything, that was good.
And they like the Joker does like mob shit. He just messes it up intentionally. So. In the comics, he'll do a heist. he'll just burn all the money or so, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, or kill all the people along the way. He doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think I say it emphatically that he's that. I mean, that you take him out of that shitty movie, and he's more visually appropriate to the comic Joker than any other adaptation. I honestly think he comes right out of the comics. I mean, the tattoos maybe not so much, but everything else is just like right on. And yeah, I think it's a compelling performance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said before, I'm cautiously excited to see Joaquin Phoenix's version of the Joker.
Okay, you missed a huge Joker, and it was almost an act of aggression against my generation.
Oh, Jack Nicholson. Yeah,
for Jack Nick, I like his Joker better than Heath Ledger's.
Boo.
What?
Yeah. Let me explain it very briefly. Heath Ledger's is a better performance acting wise. I don't think could be in question. But to me, I like the character that's created. I like Nicholson's Joker better.
Yeah, and he just acts more like the campy Joker that was in the comics at the time.
Yeah,
and that's just not my favorite Joker, and that's why I don't like Jack Nicholson's one. And also his face is just too much. Like, I get he had to have the grin, but
I love it. And also, Nick, if you go back, because I understand it's in some sense overshadowed by Heath Ledger, who, by the way, we didn't mention this, was influenced by, I can't remember the actor's name, but the Riddler from the original series, not the Joker. He very much copied the Batman series or whatever, that Riddler, and you can actually see it. There's a pretty linear kind of set of things. But anyway, that was such an incredible performance. If you watch Nicholson's Joker, the performance is outstanding.
Yeah, I mean it's good. I'm just
like the commitment to the bit, like the eccentricity. Like he absolutely, the presence. Like, I mean, I love Michael Keaton's Batman, but he very much steals the show. But anyway, yeah. So
yeah, see, I just think I'm not a fan of like Jack Nicholson's Joker or Michael Keaton's Batman. So like, I don't know. It's hard for me to even, I guess, in this case, remember that happened.
You should go back and watch it. It's really good.
I've watched it enough. No,
you'll discover things you never. How did he get those wonderful toys? Like I don't know. It's just like fantastic.
Anyway, moving on. We're in the present now. Joaquin Phoenix. So it's very. From what I can see, from this Joker, it looks very much like they're pulling a lot from The Killing Joke. So
sure, yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. I have nothing really to add to it. Nothing that it's a Joker movie. Like I'm not going to be like, this is my favorite comic book movie of all time. No. I just mean
Joker movie. It's just about a crazy white guy that could be anybody.
But yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
No, but so I actually think that your original idea about what you like about the Joker, Kayla, is actually why this should be permissible. Because if the thing is the Joker doesn't have any definite origin, then why can't this be one of the multitude of origins that he kind of does but doesn't have?
I just feel like, one, the Joker is kind of oversaturated.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, yeah, just the Joker in general is oversaturated. Pick a different villain. We just talked about how great Batman's Rogues Gallery is. He has tons of more interesting villains that haven't had a sliver of the amount of screen time. And two, I just feel like this type of movie isn't what we need right now. It's not interesting. It's not compelling. It's another edgy white guy going crazy. And I feel like people will kind of like hold the banner and be like, yeah, we're all, the Joker on the inside. So I'm just really worried about the effect this movie will have on the genuine, like, general populace. So don't need it. Don't want it. Too much Joker in general. That's my opinion.
That's interesting. I take that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not offering anything special except for another actor and another story about the same character. And for them to be like, well, it's not going to be in continuity and we're just doing, standalone movies. It's like, okay, so why did you pick this one? Why did you pick him? Like
Yeah, that's even better excuse to pick one of the other villains.
Yeah, and it just looks like an Oscar grab. That's all this is.
I think to answer some of that, I think it's hard to not do the Joker if you're going to do a Batman movie first. Like if they did a Riddler movie or a Bane movie or something like that, I think that there would almost be a natural question of like, and they haven't even done a Joker movie. But again, I mean, I don't disagree. I'd love to see any of Batman's major villains.
If it's not going to be in any Batman movie and it's not part of the continuity, what would it matter? They don't have to have a Batman movie or a Joker movie before they do a movie about, I don't know, Bane or Scarecrow. I mean, they could easily, because most of the time these villains are doing other stuff. Like Batman can't be fighting all of them and stopping all their crimes at the same time. So
no, you're absolutely right about that. No, I don't mean that they couldn't do it logically. I mean in that way that it was like, we haven't had a Wonder Woman movie yet, but they're going to have a fucking Ant-Man movie. Like, I mean it in that sense where it's sort of like, there seems something weird about getting to a less significant character historically before you do the ones that's like the major character. Joker is consistently voted the top villain in comics on so many different lists.
Yeah, but
and again, even though he's not my favorite.
Yeah, that's because I think we've been given so much. Even people that don't read comics, they're going to be like, oh, well, of course the Joker's the best one because Heath Ledger's performance was the best. I love Jack Nicholson's. Like, you know, I mean, it's just like, yeah, he's the best villain. And now you have like Thanos put into the mix. Like Thanos has increased on those lists so much because of that movie. But you read him in the comics or the comics that he happens to be in, and it's like he is like that as far as his mythology and how he acts and stuff, but he's not like that. Like if you read a lot of the Marvel comics, there's so many other villains. There's much better villains than there are Thanos. So I mean, it's just
you're right. Yeah.
We're given too much Joker. I agree with Caleb.
That's a compelling point. Just that, like, the more you, I mean, and what we mentioned before, it doesn't hurt that not only have we seen a lot of him, but like there are 8 fantastic, they knocked it out of the park examples. You know, so it's like no wonder it's not just like exposure. It's like they did such a good job. But then the other thing I think worth mentioning is that, this got a lot of political press before the movies come out. And
well, rightfully
I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree. I will say at some level that you have to separate the sort of political context this arrives in. Not that you can't talk about that. That's important. But also just on the merits of the movie itself. So the thing though I'm sympathetic to that view that it's like, why is this another weird white incel guy movie? The other thing is we don't actually know how the movie handles that reality, and it may just as well be on that same side and undermine those very sort of things. So I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to see it.
I think that's the issue. And I mean, we'll wrap this up in a minute but you just said an interesting point or something that I guess needs to be talked about. I mean, you can really go two ways with this. So you have what we've been talking about, this crazy white guy that goes on a rampage or whatever. It's like, yeah, we see that every day in real life. Do we really need that? Why do we need a movie about this? This is not necessary. And then they can go the route of making you sympathetic to somebody like that. Because I don't see, you see that he might have some weird love interest going on or like his mother. So there's elements of like trying to get sympathy and then he gets so beat down that he just snaps. And it's like, okay, so we're supposed to sympathize with people. So yes, that sucks. That shouldn't happen to people, but you're going to murder people and you're going to take down society and innocent people because you got beat up. I mean, normal people, I can't do that. Like if, something bad happens in my life and stuff like that, am I going to go to like Washington and just start like causing riots and stuff? No, I just think that, what you're showing on the screen and it's too real what's going on. So I think something like this that's coming out, you really have to be careful and it's not necessary. Nobody needed this story. Nobody asked for this story. So I think for them to be DC to be like, no, it doesn't incite violence. But you're starting the conversation anyway. Like you're bringing that conversation to the table.
Yeah. But I mean, a follow-up question. I mean, like, does that mean you don't do movies about relevant violence or something like that? I mean, it's certainly, shit's out there. And I think certainly, people want to create things about it. I mean, especially if this is pro the Joker, I'm going to be as pissed as anybody. You know what I mean? Like if this is like, man,
I think because also what happened in Aurora with the shooting during the Dark Knight, opening release and stuff, the Joker is just kind of, he's paired with this. So I think there should have been more sensitive thinking with it. And obviously we haven't seen the movie. We don't know what's going to happen in the movie. All I'm saying is I can understand the political backlash or the family's backlash and stuff like that. I mean, there just seems like there needed to be more thought, and also makes me think, well, why did you do this character? Why did you make this movie? It could have been another character. It could have been anything else. I don't know. They kind of asked for it.
Why did we do this deep dive?
Because the movie's coming out.
We didn't have to do this.
Damn it. It's keyword searches.
We're giving the Joker more screen time.
It's true.
Hey, at least we weren't like, oh, Joker's amazing the whole time. He's not. He's a piece of shit. He's a good character, though.
Well, this will be an interesting segue into our recommendations for our favorite Joker stories.
Yeah.
It's like we just talk shit about the Joker for 10 minutes. Let's talk about our favorite Joker stories.
Yeah. Comic book recommendation time. Yay. The best part of the show, because, I don't know, we get to tell you to read shit, which is the whole point of this. All right, so one of you guys want to kick it off?
Well, I can, but
Okay.
don't be too mad, Noah. Because I did Batman Death of the Family. Because it broke my heart and I want everyone to suffer with me. Because that's my personality. And it was a 23-issue comic book story arc that takes place in the New 52, written by Scott Snyder, drawn by Greg Capullo. I can never pronounce his last name, but he's amazing. And it's basically just the story of Joker tearing apart Batman's adopted family and ostracizing him from everyone he loves. And it hurts my soul. It hurts my heart. So you guys are going to suffer now, too.
It's one of my favorite stories of the Joker. The whole marketing campaign for that, too. Like, the single issue comics, you had the Joker's, peeled off face on top of the different Batman family members' faces.
Yep.
Like, you can peel it back and you'd see Damian's face or Batman's face or Barbara's face. It was great. I have, all of them.
Yeah, I love that.
It's always nice when a marketing campaign is actually followed up by a good story too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it lives up to it, I want to go next.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I am doing Batman: A Death in the Family. So for a number of reasons. One, most of you, if you're looking for stuff, you would run into this anyway. But it's written by Jim Starlin, the guy who created Thanos. Or Thanos, depending on how you pronounce it. And so it's just interesting that he had this place first. And then illustrated by Marv Wolfman, the guy who did a number of people, Teen Titans, wrote on Teen Titans. Anyway, to me, this is the moment where Joker kind of moves from being this admittedly scary, psychotic gangster foil to somebody who really invaded and came close to destroying Batman's, entire existence as a crime fighter. I think this is when he moves into the truly psychotic and infamous, and it's a very strong story. It's also got some cool Ra's stuff, Ra's al Ghul. So check it out.
Okay, so mine, it's the same creative team as Kayla, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. It's Batman Endgame, and this actually takes place after Death in the Family and Batman Eternal. So this is after the Joker had disappeared in Death of the Family, and this is the return of the Joker right before I believe the New 52 was ending or setting up for 0 Year, one of the two. It's Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and it's essentially Joker comes back and he releases this gas into Gotham, and it makes people crazy. It's kind of like a zombie virus type thing, but in the story you have Batman fighting the Justice League, and then dealing with Joe Chill, which that was the Joker at the time. That's what he would call himself. Yeah, I would read it. It's really cool. It's the ending, or at least the setup for 0 Year, and the ending of the New 52 in that Joker, which is also one of the 3 Jokers. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. By the way, I love that the listener was like, I know they're going to do a Killing Joke, but we didn't recommend it.
Nope, we just... Kayla recommended one comic, and I did the one right after it.
Yeah. And we didn't recommend it because, let's face it, you've already read that.
Yeah. Oh, and I will say,
Yeah,
before we
probably.
go, don't base the Killing Joke off of the animated movie, because I do not like the animated movie. They changed stupid stuff in that. It's not a good
It's so creepy.
interpretation.
Do not watch the animated
Yeah.
movie. I agree with Noah. It's
Well,
garbage.
Yeah, it's garbage compared to what the comic is, and they create new relationships and themes in that were not necessary. So read the comic and then watch the movie and then be pissed off with us, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, the movie's fine, but yeah, it's not tonally even. It's just not as good.
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's Joker Deep Dive.
Woo!
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.